Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me today. I have prepared some slides which I hope are going to work if I just have a little play. Yes, okay, it works. So, my name is Julia, and I represent the town of Shrewsbury. That's my constituency, and really I'm here because I feel there's a bit of a gap. There's a gap in the conversation, there's a gap in the funding, and there's a gap in the thinking, because we all know about what is happening with the fantastic process of devolution and the funding that flows into the combined authorities, whether mayoral or county. But did you know that 48% of the country still is not in a combined mayoral authority? So we're talking 40 million people, like my residents, that are not in a combined authority, and there's no sign that my local council is going to get its act together and join one in the near future. Don't worry, I text them every day to encourage them to consider this. But in the meantime, Shrewsbury is not getting £1 billion to design and plan and prepare any integrated transport, and nor is anybody having the conversation about whether and how it should. So for me, what's really important when you're having the conversation about integrated transport, when you're talking about how to make this inclusive and how we can use intelligent systems to make it more inclusive, that you're thinking about rural and semi-rural communities and the opportunities that are open to them, because at the moment, nobody else is really thinking about them. So why Shrewsbury? I mean, you could have had the MP from anywhere. First of all, because quite obviously it's the most beautiful town in the country. And of course, as you might have expected, if I wanted to fulfill all your prejudices and stereotypes, we are an old-fashioned, sleepy town in the middle of Shropshire. And we have, of course, an 1848 railway station to satisfy your thoughts about our crumbling old infrastructure. Can I just have a show of hands? Has anybody actually visited Shrewsbury? Like, turn that hand into a thumb if you thought it was fabulously beautiful. Not a single hand went down. Shrewsbury is spectacularly beautiful. We have the River Severn flowing through. We have cobbled streets, medieval towns. The UK's favourite market, 3 years in a row. More independent shops than anywhere else. Now, you can probably tell by my voice, I'm not really a native of Shrewsbury. I come from Yorkshire. I come from Selby. And Shrewsbury really reminds me of York. Same sort of era, same river, loop of the town, cobbled, beautiful history, old-fashioned historic railway station. But there's one really big difference. York is full of Japanese and American tourists, and Shrewsbury is a hidden gem that you're lucky if you can find. And that's because we don't have the rail and bus connections. We are cut off. We have not had the investment that other places have. So it's quite a good case study to understand why an area that has massive economic potential has been overlooked. So Shrewsbury sounds like it's a rural place in the middle of nowhere, but I am the county town. That's code for capital, city region. We are 70,000 residents, and we are the capital of a county that has 500,000, so 500,000 people. We are the centre for health, education, the college, learning. We used to have a university, shops. So everywhere, those 500,000 residents, they all have to get in to Shrewsbury, and they really struggle because we have been defunded and overlooked in terms of transport connections. Just in the last 10 years of the last government, we lost 65% of our buses. So for every 3 buses we used to have, 2 have been deleted. We have 1 left. That means many towns and parts of the town are completely cut off from that communication. And the reason why that's relevant is because every county has a county town capital like mine. So think about Worcestershire, think about Herefordshire, think about Hertfordshire. They all have a centre, which is the beating heart of that whole community that ought to have those connections. But nobody is funding it, nobody's thinking about it, and nobody is talking about it. So there's our beautiful station. It's right next to the castle. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And here is what is so important about what that station represents. So Shrewsbury is in fact a border town. We are the edge of the West Midlands, so that huge industrial conurbation, and we are also the border onto the Welsh network. My station is actually run by Transport for Wales, and they do a fantastic job. They've maintained it really well, and we have really good services into Wales. But here's the thing. So under privatisation, we were on the edge of the Welsh map. We are in fact an English station at the end of their line. And for the West Midlands, we were the last stop in the middle of nowhere. So neither of those operators really wanted to invest in us or through us or beyond us. We were always everybody's last stop. So for us, GBR presents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where we're all stepping back and looking at the whole map And what you actually see is that Shrewsbury is the gateway between Wales, which is having a massive investment right now through TfW, and the Midlands, which is also having a massive investment through the Midlands Rail Hub, so increasing its capacity. And what you have here is an opportunity for investment from both sides, basically playing off both parents against each other to maximise the funding for Shrewsbury. You will not believe that we have 2.3 million passengers pass through Shrewsbury Station. We're the fourth busiest on the Welsh network and one of the main contributors economically. So we are a commercial operation. And that's because my residents have the highest economic footprint of the Midlands. The highest academic level, the highest salary level, the highest house price level. They would love to use public transport. They're environmentally minded, they're middle class, we have huge congestion in a historic town centre, but they can't because we don't have enough services. So I'm describing a place with huge latent demand, but the services have not been delivered. We've been left behind. So what's missing? Well, quite obviously what's missing, number one, is a mayor, a combined mayoral authority. If we were part of that bigger picture, then we would start this wider picture about planning, investment, that vision. Right now, if we want to build houses in Shropshire, we don't have to worry about anybody else's transport or anybody else's education, any of our neighbouring authorities. We don't even have to talk to them about it. We can just plonk another 10,000 houses and crack on. And if our neighbours across the way in the West Midlands Combined Authority would like to increase their buses or their trains, they don't need to speak to us in Shrewsbury or Shropshire. They can just do the bit for their area because we are not part of the gang. We are not in the party. And so what it does is means that everybody cracks on with their own job, but with limited resources. We haven't got £1 billion transport funds. We got 13 million for 3 years for our buses in Shrewsbury. And that will be true for every county town up and down the country. So there's lots of other things we're missing. I talked about the bus services have been cut down to 1/3. Our train services, we're absolutely at saturation. Some of my services have 81 people standing because it's the only service that gets them to a university or a college. When one of my operators put on an extra carriage, we all thought, great, people can sit down. Ticket sales went up by 18% that day because word spread. They're going to give us a carriage. Could you imagine if they gave us an extra service or an extra line, which is the work that we're doing currently? The other thing that's missing is integration, which is what your conference is all about. Although the bus station in Shrewsbury is in fact only about 500 yards away from the train station, it's also the world's best kept secret because it's tucked away round a corner. So if you're from Shrewsbury, you do know about it. But when you guys all come for your next day trip to my beautiful town, when you arrive at the station, the railway station, you won't know that it's there. There is no connection between those two things. So we're not helping people to get to the train station. There's people out in all those villages across the 19 market towns. And we heard earlier, I heard today in another round table around the opportunities in active travel. The congestion is so tight in my cobbled streets that we're really trying to get that modal shift out of cars. But there isn't a step-free access to the station. There isn't a safe cycle lane. There aren't any cycle pods. So some of the basic nuts and bolts are missing because it's nobody's job to think about it and to add that value. And the last thing they want to do is add extra passengers for services that don't exist. We're back in that chicken and egg, aren't we? Why would you drive up demand? We've already got latent demand. We haven't got services because of where we sat on the map. Commercial amenities and opportunities. I always love this one. So, middle-class people in Shrewsbury have got a beautiful station. They want to get on the train and have a lovely day trip. When they get to the station, there is nowhere they can buy a book or a newspaper or any tissues or any headache tablets. There is one chain cafe, Starbucks, where they can buy themselves quite an expensive coffee. Sorry, anybody. But that's the only commercial opportunity at our station. So, we're not making the most of the passengers that we have. They're not able to get any services or amenities. We don't have an ATM. We don't have anywhere they can properly sit down. I think that any shop there is going to make a huge amount of money. And just opposite the station on the corner, we have a little quirky independent coffee shop that roasts its own coffee. Every morning, my passengers arrive early to take a detour to the independent coffee shop, to buy the coffee from them and walk back to the station because they really want to spend money and have a nice, enjoyable journey, and we're not providing them with that opportunity. We're missing an economic trick. In fact, that brings us back onto enjoyment, making this an enjoyable activity. So here's the grubby reality. First of all, I showed you a picture of what looked like a palace, which was our fabulous station. But the reality is we have this grotty car park in front, which is right on quite a busy dual carriageway, just underneath a railway bridge covered in pigeon poo. And traffic builds up here, belching out fumes. Nobody wants to cross there. It's quite dark. And because of the old-fashioned, quite pretty canopy, people don't look up and admire the beautiful building. They look down to make sure they don't walk in pigeon poo, make sure they don't get crushed by the traffic and scurry inside in the rain. So all that potential is lost because the reality is, as a historic building in a historic centre, we're wedged into a tight corner with terrible access, with quite tight restrictions. And in rush hour, you can wait 40 minutes to move this stretch of traffic to get in to the station. Yet once you're in there, the potential is huge. 2.3 million passengers, 7 tracks. We have tracks and parts of the station and platforms that are just not used because we're not maximising our potential. So, what did we do about this? So I told you that I dream of having a mayor, but I'm not going to get one anytime soon. So instead of that, I just pretend that I am the mayor. I fill the gap that is waiting for somebody. I think if you're excitable enough, they sort of believe you. So what would a mayor do? So a mayor is what we call a single intelligent client. If you want to invest or run a service or get permission, you ask the mayor, and you've got financial authority, you've got political power, you've got the planning, you've kind of neutralised any objections, and you know you've got permission to move. In areas without a mayor, anybody who wants to get permission to run a service or a building or an amenity, they have to speak to the council, speak to the MP, get planning permission, speak to the economic growth, speak to the chamber, find out who's in charge, who knows what the economic strategy is, who's got permission, who's in charge of the highways, how can they get something through that committee. It takes months and months and months. They go round and round in circles. It's nobody's job to think about something extra, so it's just going to get buried. So I pretend I'm the mayor. I set up the group that a mayor would have, which is a transport integration group. Because it's Shrewsbury, I called it STIG, Shrewsbury Transport Integration Group. For those of a certain age, we could be STIG of the dump. For the others, they don't know what we're talking about. And what do? In that room, I bring together all of those partners. So I've got my county council, my town council. I've got every rail operator, including the one that runs my station. I've got all the bus operators. But I've also got the bus users groups and the railway users groups. I've got the chamber. I've got the business improvement district. I've got Department for Transport send 2 representatives. I've got Midlands Connect. I've got Network Rail. I've got everybody in that room who could block any proposal or initiative to do something brilliant. Got the station manager in there as well. She took some time to get there, didn't she, Marcus? But they're in the room. 25 people. Once we got to we do it every 2 months. When I got to the second one, I was like, we're going to have to pay for more lunch and get more chairs because everyone's turning up. And I asked them, is it the time of day or is it the agenda? They said, no, Julia, it's the first time we've ever met each other. It's the first time the operators have met the people in charge of strategy, the people in charge of running the buses, the people who give permissions at the council, that the train operators could speak to the bus team at the council about lining up times of the last bus and the last train, that the people running festivals in the town like Oktoberfest could speak to the station manager about 1,000 drunk men all arriving at 12 minutes past 10 p.m. It's the first time they've started to have a joined up conversation. So we don't need a mayor for that. We can do that together. We can have that convening power. And together, not only do we start to talk to each other about what we have, we start to talk about what we are missing and what the opportunities are and what the potential is. So it's now been running for a year. And in that time, you can see the different work streams that we're trying to bring together. We're trying to integrate buses and trains. We're trying to add the active travel. We're trying to increase the number of services, whether it's extra buses or extra trains. So we're trying to squeeze those operators. But we're also trying to do the extra bits around the side of the station. Can we get that footpath through to the football club? Can we link it to this new housing development? How can we bring these things together? So everybody around that table all seems to want the same thing. We all want more transport for Shrewsbury and we want to join it together. So I've noticed, a bit like if you invite them, they will come. If you tell them, I've noticed it just starts to happen. So they took away 2/3 of our buses, but quite particularly, Shrewsbury, that big 70,000 metropolis and that tourist centre, we don't have any buses after 6 p.m. and we don't have any buses on a Sunday, and it's been like that for a decade. Can you imagine any other county town that doesn't have that basic facility? So I started saying, well, the first thing this group's going to do is fill those two gaps. The first thing we're going to do is get a night bus trial, and then we're going to have a Sunday service trial. When's the best month of the year to do a night bus? Well, it's Christmas, because everybody wants to go out for a drink. So we ran a 1-month trial at Christmas. I got the partners around the table to throw a few quid in. The whole project cost £10,000 for 1 month. 3 different bus routes an hour from 8 o'clock till midnight every night of the week. 1,514 people used that bus. Within 3 days, this is my newsletter, telling everybody what we've done. Within 3 days, the Police Crime Commissioner, who is a different political party to me, but nonetheless thought what we were doing was fantastic, he contacted the group and said, I'd like to sponsor that bus for the next 3 months. You have reduced antisocial behaviour in the town centre. You're helping women and young people get home safely at night. I want to use my prevention budget. I can't believe it's only £10,000 a month. That's a bargain. Please, let me pay, because my numbers of referrals at night time are going down. So it's been extended now to the 1st of April. The project team are writing a bid for another year to run that, so that service becomes embedded for a year. And we're using this time to run various surveys, mainly on Facebook, but also by email, to ask different parts of the town where else we could extend that service to. And we're thinking about including 2 more areas. Because, as you can tell, most people were quite excited about the night bus, except the people of Monkmoor were furious. And they were furious because they had been excluded, because the routes didn't go through Monkmoor, and they absolutely wanted the service. What that's done has shown those partners that when we work together, we can very quickly take action and cut through and make change. So now we're talking about a Sunday service trial in the summer. We've been speaking to 2 of our operators about adding amenities at the railway station. So TFW, we're asking them to double-deck the car park, but leave a space for a bus loop so they can have the revenue from the cars, but we'll finally get buses that touch our train station. It will be a beautiful moment. They said we can only do it if Network Rail will give us a longer lease. Network Rail think it's a great idea that somebody wants to invest in the station. So bringing partners together, just talking and growing that joint vision means we can start to make that progress. And what we're doing now, I said to them, surely it's not time efficient for all of us to be spending our time with individual projects like this. I think it'd be a much better use of all of our time if we lock these into a master plan. So we've got a joint vision going forward for the next 5 to 10 years about what we need at this station and with our partners. And so what we've done now with the goodwill and that demonstration of success is lock in partners to a future vision. And we're starting to develop the pipeline of projects and who will pay for what. The first 5 things have already got partners committed to fund their part of the jigsaw. And so what you can see is that by bringing partners together in a rural space, by changing the narrative, instead of saying funding and public transport only applies to urban areas, aren't we sad we don't get anything, we just have to turn that on its head and say, of course it applies to us. And actually, it's our job to fill the gap. Until the day that I get my fabulous mayor, we can still do all of the other pieces of work. We can form a partnership, we can develop a strategy, we can look in a master plan, we can bid for funds, we can build it incrementally, and however far we get on that journey, the mayor can come along and put the cherry on the top. There's no reason why any other county town or any other rural town couldn't do the same, because it is about convening our partners and using those powers together. So the 2 final points really is that I know that you'll have all been discussing quite a lot about GBR and the changes in front of us and where's the place for investment and which parts will government do and which parts will they allow investors to do. So before I was an MP, my previous job was about bidding for funding, bidding and delivering government grants. There is no better value for money or return on investment than matching public money with private investment. And the trick here is about bringing those partners together and saying, this partner will contribute A, but we really need B from government. And I see that Network Rail are going to invest C, but why don't we double it with the Heritage Railway? And why don't we let Transport for Wales double your money here? And I think it's not just about talking to each other and working together, but it's about leveraging in those different pots of money. So my final point really is that that public transport is not just for urban areas with hugely densely populated cities, fabulous though they are, and jealous as I am as everything you have here in Manchester and Liverpool, but that we absolutely can look at the model and tweak it for a slightly different template in rural areas. But the beautiful part is this. In a rural area, those same systems might cost a tiny bit more money, but the impact it will have in rurally isolated cut-off communities will be exponentially better. I have one college for 10,000 students in a geography of 500,000. When you put a bus or a train that connects young people to those training opportunities, you change their lives. Because I have met a lot of young people who cannot access the college, and they have no other choice but to close down their aspirations and just do the job that they can walk to. So we're spoilt for choice in urban areas. It's much more restricted in rural. But that funding and that join-up can go so much further and have a much bigger impact. So I think Shrewsbury is a good case study for the country. I think a county town is the original city region. It's the original mayor, isn't it? The original combined mayoral authority. And there are hundreds like us. So I'd like to hear if any of you are from rural or semi-rural patches, or you've got comments from your urban areas that we can learn from. But we need to move at pace and fill this void and start rolling out the best practice from places like Manchester into places like Shrewsbury. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julia. And that was truly, I think, a masterclass in the power of local thought and local action and what it takes to just make something happen. I really like this idea of fake it till you make it mayors as well. I think we should try and adopt that. Okay, we've got time for a couple of questions. I think there's some people behind you.
Thank you, Julia. My name's Keith. I'm an independent consultant on popular things like road pricing. I live in Monmouth, which is a county town. I would like you to talk to my MP, Catherine Fuchs, who is the gateway, operates the gateway to Wales in the south. And we, unlike you, don't have a railway station at all. We have buses up till about 5 o'clock. And I've had a lonely campaign to try and get improvement in transport for the past 20 years I've lived there. So really, you are echoing something which is very dear to my heart, and I'm sure other people in the room as well. So please talk to Catherine, and she'll remember me perhaps because I've written to her quite a few times.
She's also very well placed because she's a PPS to Keir Starmer. So I think we should be whispering to her about how this could be replicated across England and Wales and Scotland.
I like what you're saying, and your enthusiasm maybe could be transfused into people in South Wales who are on the border, not even at the end of the line, because the line doesn't stretch that far. So, yeah, you know, Abergavenny, Newport, Culzean, anywhere you like, there's a train, but not in the county town. Okay,
yeah, that's where everybody has to go to access all the services. So it doesn't make any economic sense, does it? Think about the hospital, the college, the main parts of employment. I mean, it doesn't make sense. That's where there should be a hub or a node.
We're developing a good biking network, but not anything else. And we do pay the same taxes as the people in the cities, and there therefore should be some consideration of how we could fund that. And there are quite a few ways you can fund things. You know, I hate to mention road pricing again, but there is something there as well. Rather than stuff all of the money into the treasury, let it be used by the local authorities.
Well, there is another, I don't think it's controversial, but there is another model which I know Greater Manchester are starting to roll out beyond their own borders. So where you've already got trains, you've already put in 80% of the infrastructure. And so I know that your mayor has then rolled over into Glossop to provide a direct train. So you've got rural residents who don't live in the CMA, but they're very happy to pay to get a direct train into Manchester Centre. So that becomes like a commercial service, a bit like what we're doing for Wales, where actually you've already invested so far. The economy of scale is a very small extra add-on to provide a service that's missing and effectively cross-subsidise within your CMA area. So it doesn't even need to be the patch that you pay tax to has to be the body that provides the service. And I've had that identical conversation with my nearest combined authority, which is the West Midlands. So I went to see the Mayor, Richard Parker, and said, have you heard what Andy Burnham's doing in Glossop? He thinks Glossop people have got money. You should know Shrewsbury people have got money. Please, let me subsidise your conurbation in the Black Country in the West Midlands. And his ears pricked up.
Joined up thinking. Yeah.
So think beyond just you pay your tax, it should be done by your authority. There's many different ways that this can be done, and we have to think flexibly within the current devolution system.
Julia, I'm very sorry, but I think we're going to have to leave it there. I'm being indicated that...
No, it's a question, I think.
Oh, is there one more? Oh, no.
Okay. No.
One more. Okay, thank you so much again for your time. I know that you've had to get a pass out of work to come today, and obviously it's a busy day today in Parliament, so we do appreciate that. So just while we're thanking Julia, can I invite the rest of the panel members to come to the stage, please? And a round of applause. Thank you very much, Julia Buckley. Thank you.